Hi, and welcome to the locker room. I am one of the hosts, Justin Ham, and thank you so much for joining us as we journey through tough issues that guys face as athletes, but also just as humans. Let's welcome our guest today, actually, for the first time. This is Easton, as he is here today to help us navigate the question of guys, God, and does it matter? Easton, thank you so much for taking some time on a Sunday afternoon after a busy week and sharing some time with us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how you and I first got connected?
Yeah, no problem. So me and Justin connected probably 2 years ago, roughly,
I would
through
say about
Princetown
that, yeah.
Church, where I go
Hmm.
to church, and it was Justin was coming back to the area and he wanted to launch Power Camp, and he was connected with the pastor at our church, and we thought it would be a great opportunity to kind of get the ball rolling at Princetown and with FCA in the Power Camp. And so I was part of the planning committee that we helped roll together that inaugural Power Camp at Princetown Church. And it's been a great connection ever since meeting you, Justin.
Yeah, man, it's been a pleasure to get to serve alongside you and then get to know you and find out a little bit more about your story that I know today we're probably going to dive into. But for you listeners out there who might not know, working for FCA, we do a lot of sports camps, and one of the models of sports camps that we do is it's a camp for kids ages 5 to 12, so it's the younger demographic, and we partner with churches to do that. And Power Camp is what we call it. So Easton was part of the groundbreaking first ever power camp we've done in the capital region, and he helped us pull it off again this year. So we're super excited for that. But having you on the podcast today, Easton, one of the things that that stuck out getting to know you, and we can talk about, where this conversation ends up going, but one of the things that I found super fascinating about you specifically is the more that I got to know you is you played sports at the highest level almost. You were a D1 athlete, D1 runner, ran at a high level. But what I found most fascinating about you was your willingness to jump in and to serve and to just get involved in your local church. So I don't know if you want to talk about where you want to start, but I would love to just hear a little bit of your backstory and your faith journey and maybe where God's kind of brought you and kind of where you were in the beginning, and then we'll kind of take the conversation from there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was lucky enough growing up to pretty much play every sport you can imagine: football, basketball, soccer, baseball, even a little bit. And I was kind of growing up, I was always the fastest kid on any team that I was on. And then that kind of down the line turned into just doing track. And
Mm.
initially it was kind of reluctant. I wanted to do these other sports, and then I kind of just realized I could be really good at this and I should probably focus on it and take it a little bit more serious than I was. That didn't really happen to like my senior year of high school. But in kind of my faith background is I grew up in the church. I went to Princetown as a young kid for a very long time. And then sports and all these sports I was doing kind of overtook a lot of my life and my time, whereas, you couldn't go to church on a Sunday morning because you had a game or something. And so I became more of a in and out, show up when I can, read my Bible when I can, have time. But was a I was always a believer. There was never any doubt throughout all this as I was growing up. It wasn't my main priority. It wasn't my identity. A lot of that was in my sport and in my performance and all of that. And so it wasn't till I got to college and kind of finishing up my college career, and I had a lot of injuries and I didn't really end my career how I wanted to. And it really, when I was done competing, it was a big hole in my life that I had kind of just realized I had put way too much into this, and I hadn't really had an identity with the Lord, and I had just been focused so much on my sport, my performance, how good could I get, how high of a level could I take it to, and when it ended, it was really tough to process all of that. And then I started reattending church, and I just remember one of the first times I went back, and it was at Princetown consistently, and there was a message, and it just like spoke to me so well about kind of these worldly treasures that we'll put our heart in and how they'll never be able to fulfill us. And it just really, everything just reeled me back into my faith more than
Mm.
ever before, really. And it just really led me out of where I was and just helped me grow as a person and in my faith a lot.
Yeah, that's so cool, and thank you so much for sharing that. Like, I love the vulnerability behind that of, you put all of your focus and your identity into what you were competing in. And it makes sense. I mean, to run at the level you did, you had to make it a priority to some degree. How did you how did you navigate coming back out of that? You know, you had this thing you've been chasing your whole life. You got, I don't know, maybe you had aspirations to go even further, but you still got pretty far. How did you navigate, letting that go and realizing that come back to faith and really putting your identity not in the earthly things, but how did you kind of negotiate that for yourself at 21, 22 years old?
Yeah, yeah, it was initially tough because so going back to it, my in college competing, my best year was really my junior year. I did really well. I was basically top like 50 in the country across like all like high school, college, pros, and it was like, all right, like if I have a good senior year, maybe I'll take this a little bit more serious and keep going a couple more years. Then I had a really bad injury my senior year that just like kept me out of like I could never get into a rhythm my senior year, and it was just like I was at one point I was literally just taking almost ibuprofen like just to be able to practice. It was tough, and it was really hard mentally on me because I knew that I like had kind of this goal in line for my senior year, and it didn't line up at all how I wanted to. And so then once it ended, I was very like caught up on, do I want to stay with this? Do I not? My body just feels like very tired, very just the wear and tear of doing sports throughout was so hard. And so I kind of had to make that decision, like, am I going to keep going with this or not? And I
Mhm.
became at peace with it towards the summer. And that's kind of, I'd always been helping out, coaching younger kids, involved with kind of developing other kids. And so that was a nice segue for me out of my athletic career, was just kind of helping others, coaching. And that's how I got a job coaching at Russell Sage
Mhm.
College, the track and field team. And that really helped smoothen the transition out. But for a
Yeah,
long time for me, it was very hard because it was like, this is 10, 15, I don't know how many years of my life that I've been
sure.
doing this for. And I always joke around with people. I'm like, if track and field was like a sport as popular, football, basketball, or baseball, I'd probably be doing that right now. But I mean, it's not. And that's perfectly fine.
Sure.
But you can't make a living off of it unless you're like one of the best in the world. That also helped make the decision a little bit easier. So.
Well, just not to put you on the spot, but just talk about how high level you actually were. So what was your I think you were 200 runner, was that what it was? Or hurdles? I forget what it was, but you were
You cut out
elite.
for a
You were
second. What were you
elite.
asking?
Like what was your actual like what was what was your event that you were
Oh,
good at?
yeah,
Because you
yeah, I
were
was a
like top of
mhm.
the top of the top in the country at the time.
Yeah, I was a sprinter and hurdler at UAlbany. I
Hmm.
was on a sprint. I was on a school record relay for them. I was top five in a couple of events for the school. I was then, let me think. Sorry. Multiple time American East Conference champion. At one point, they do regional rankings. And so our region is the Northeast, which is basically New Jersey and every state up.
Hmm.
And I was second in that behind someone from UConn. I mean, I would go and compete against some of these big Power Five
Right.
schools, and I would do pretty well against them. So I was, right around hovering on that level of, not quite the best of the best, but like a level below that, which almost can be worse for you in a sense because then you just get so tied into that trying to get to the next level, trying to find your identity in that
Right.
performance, in that. And that
Right.
that was what I struggled with was I never, this is going to sound kind of sad to say, but I didn't find much enjoyment out of my performances usually because I knew like I could do better, I had to do better, and I was always focused in on that. And it took a lot of the joy away from it at times.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense, but that's kind of why I wanted like our listeners that are listening, like you were like hovering like right there. Like it wasn't, I think every kid at one point dreams of going, pro and like basketball and playing in the NBA, and you were probably closer to what that would look like in track than most everyone else. And then to have that kind of, taken away by injury, like that does probably leave like a hole in there, like you were saying. So I just kind of wanted to get a
Yeah,
little more
yeah, it did.
background on that. But it's interesting. You just said something though that I think is super fascinating. Like you were talking about how, you didn't have the joy. Like you didn't have the joy in competing. When did you find that? left you? Because I'm sure at one point, like when you were in high school, maybe you had it, or maybe you never did have it. Because even earlier, you said it wasn't really like your favorite thing. You just realized it was a thing you were good at. But when do you remember having the joy whilst competing? And then when did you find it not there anymore?
Um, yeah, so funny enough, my older sister ran track and field before me, and she
Okay.
was really good, had high school records, was getting recruited for college. And so my parents basically like forced me to do it because she was doing it.
Gotcha.
And so I was very like, I don't want to do this. And then I would like never go to practice and go play basketball or whatever. But, and
Nothing wrong with that as a basketball coach. Nothing
then,
wrong with basketball. Just
but
sorry.
no, it's okay. And then a couple of races. So I was a freshman in high school and I was competing on the varsity team. And there was a couple times where I like would win a race against, seniors or yada yada yada. And I had some really good coaches around me that would just tell me like, hey, if you take this more serious, you can be very good at this. And I think every young kid really needs that to kind of help hone them in on the direction of where they should focus. And so, I mean, I didn't listen to them initially. I kept doing everything else. But then my sophomore year, I had a really good breakthrough and I was close to, honestly, should have made it to the state meet my sophomore year. Had a bad race at the qualifier meet for that. Kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And then going into my junior year, I was like dead set on like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to states. I'm going to break the record here, all those things. And then it kind of carried on a little bit through my senior year and so on. But initially it was kind of difficult for me because the direction, like I knew that I wanted to work at this and have success in it, but I didn't necessarily know how to or what I needed to do. And so having like a good support system to point me in the right direction kind of helped, but there was ups and downs with that as well.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So it does. It sounds like, God gave you like some natural ability, but then you had to kind of tweak that and turn that into something that you had. And
Yeah,
then
yeah, for
you
sure.
kind of it's and you mentioned it before, you said you kind of found yourself losing that joy and that you were just more worried about, what you could have done differently. The reason I think that sticks out is like I think a lot of times, and this is a podcast that we typically it's not necessarily just for guys, but we kind of come at it from that angle. And,
Hmm.
guys I think struggle with that idea of it's not so much as sitting and enjoying what you've done. It's always looking back and saying, like, how could I have done it better? Whether it's in sports, whether it's in life. It's never, I feel like we're super hard on ourselves. And, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, yeah. I grew up a very competitive person, and it's always like I didn't like to lose, and
Yeah,
if I lost, I always felt I could do more. So like, there would be times where I have a bad race and I'm literally going to the gym that night to go like lift or going, which
sure.
like is horrible for like recovery and all that. But that was just kind of like my mindset was like, if you didn't get the result that you wanted, you need to do more, which often in life it's the exact opposite. You have to reset, recover, reprioritize, and kind of gear up that way because doing more will often do more harm than good. And
Hmm.
so that would go on for my career for a long time where I would have a poor performance and I would just be like, well, I need to work harder, I need to get more practices in. And
Yeah.
it was not really helpful at all. So kind of letting go of that and detaching from that helped a lot towards the end of my career. But I think one of the hard things is when you get to college and you're running or doing your sport in college, it gets more of it feels like a job where you're doing it every day. And so slowly it kind of does take that joy away. And it's hard to really know how to keep it. I mean, I know I've got friends that they golfed Division 1 in college and they don't even like playing golf anymore,
Sure.
which I'm like, geez, that stinks. Like it's one of the best, post-retired athlete sport to do,
So
and you
they
don't
all
even
do.
feel
They go
like
to
doing it
golf.
anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really finding that balance and developing yourself outside of your sport in your faith and your hobbies and relationships with other people that's going to help really solve that issue. Because for me, I was too focused in on my sport.
No, that makes sense. And it's interesting. Like I can relate to a lot of that. Like I've been coaching now for a while and early in my coaching career and even truthfully, even now sometimes it's like I'll say it like I hate losing more than I like winning. So it's almost like when you win, it's like, all right, that's what you're supposed to do. But rather than sit
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
reflect in that, it's like, all right, now what do I got to do to keep it? And, it reminds me of, in some ways, and I think this is what makes people as competitors good at their sport and good at what they do. But it's that idea of never resting in the fact of what they did, resetting, recovering. I like that. It's more, all right, how can I keep this going? So like what'll happen is it probably would lead to burnout. I know, one of our family verses that we have in our house, it's like literally on the wall above our kitchen table. It's Psalms 50, I think it's Psalm 52 where it says, "Be still and just know that I am God." And I feel like a lot of times, especially high level athletes, competitive people, like it's that idea of being still, like, or resting in who God is, or resting in, the fact that you don't have to be the best. You don't have to constantly be striving. You don't have to constantly be, pushing forward to win the next meet or to get the next job or to get the biggest pay raise, and just take a minute to just kind of reset. I think too many people don't realize that. And I think it's important as athletes to have rest and recover, but I also think in life, right? Like when you're looking at the work rate, the society pressure, the culture's pressure of getting bigger, everything bigger or bigger, more money, bigger house, bigger car, prettier girlfriend, beautiful wife, whatever it might be. You're always constantly striving, and there's never that just resting and finding time to be with God.
Yeah.
How
And
do you feel? How do you feel about that?
yeah, I think you hit the hammer on the nail right there. It's really, and for me, what kind of helped shift my perspective of that is just knowing that the Lord will provide. And
Mm.
if you don't have something, it's because the Lord doesn't think you need it. And whether that's right
Right.
now or down the line, and just trusting in Him and not trying to find value in these earthly things that they'll never be enough to fulfill you. Because even,
Yeah.
I could have reached every goal or accomplishment that I could have wanted as an athlete. And that's still, I would probably still have that empty feeling that I had at the end of my career that I had anyways, just because I wasn't filling my cup up with
Yeah.
the Lord. And that's something that's helped me get through that.
So like what would you say from your experience, right? Because I love how you just worded that as, filling your cup up with thanks to the Lord. Like high level athlete, D1 athlete, record breaking athlete, but yet it still wasn't enough. What did it take for you to learn? How do I take what I believe? How do I take my faith? Like how can I begin to fill my cup up with those things? What was it for you that got you to that point? Or maybe even a better question, what actually did you end up doing to help you start to fill your cup up with those kinds of things that are of the Lord?
Yeah. So I mean, I've always tried to read my Bible every day, but obviously more of an emphasis on that and making it like a true devotional with time with the Lord where you're analyzing His Word and resonating on it versus just reading it
Mm.
and then for 10, 15 minutes and then it's out of your mind the rest of the day. So that was huge. Getting involved in community groups at my church and just being around other people with that same heart for the Lord was huge. Serving others is just such a fulfilling thing that you can do. And just that's really something that I love to do in any capacity. So that's helped a ton. So those
Yeah.
would kind of be my main three.
Well, just even in that, I mean, that's huge, right? Like, I think so many people tend to go inward, and two out of the three things you said, and even truthfully spending real time in the Word, even that you could argue, all three of those things are taking something and then taking it outward. Not just sitting there and reading your Bible and then saying, all right, I did it, but then letting it affect your life so then it begins to change how you
Yeah.
live, then getting connected with other people and then serving other people. I think I think that's great advice. I think, a lot of times people struggle with the idea of, I want to take my faith more seriously, but what does it look like? And what I love about those three things that you just said was there was things that you did, there was people that you went and spent time with, and then there was people that you intentionally poured into. And I think that's how you and I got connected. We got connected through working for the Power Camp. And now here you are helping us. You helped us lead it the last 2 years. This year, next year, you and me might be running it together. I don't know. We
Yeah.
might not have Kathy next year. But all of that to say is like you took something that was probably painful, losing your sport faster than you wanted to. And rather than stay there and dwell in that and let that kind of infiltrate your life and take over, you decided you want to get serious about your faith and you took three very actionable steps that I think anyone listening to this could benefit from. You know,
Yeah.
I know that you're connected at your church, but talk a little bit, if you don't mind, just about the benefit of getting connected with other people who are chasing after the same things that you are.
Um, yeah, so it's kind of, I mean, it's the old saying of like you're the average of the five people you hang around with. So like if you want to strengthen your relationship with the Lord, you need to make sure that you're connecting yourself with people that are also after the same thing. And that
Mhm.
community just really it allows you to hold each other accountable, allow each other to grow, but also challenge each other and just your understanding of what it takes to be a good Christian and to treat
Mm,
others well and live well. So
yeah,
just that's really all that it is for me.
I love that. And I think sometimes what makes people hesitant about that is the idea of, in order to do that effectively, you have to have some kind of level of vulnerability. And not everyone likes to admit maybe when they struggle or when there's flaws, but that's true authenticity is really when the growth can happen, I think.
Yeah. And that's I think a lot of people are afraid of maybe they're afraid of I'm not at like a level where I feel comfortable meeting with people that might know more than me or something along that lines. But it's once again it's that vulnerability that you mentioned of just allowing the Lord to work in your heart in whatever capacity that is, because not everyone starts at the same point, but we can all finish at the same point, which is in heaven.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then living once, and the sooner you can get heading in that growing relationship with Jesus, that really begins to like affect everything. So like how have you seen since, your faith has become more intentional, that's probably a fair way to say it, a more intentional living
Yes.
out of your faith. How have you seen that affect the rest of your life outside of maybe sports or maybe even in sports? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I wish I'd kind of been more intentional in my faith as I was competing as an athlete because I think it would have given me a little bit more joy and happiness in my sport if I didn't have that burden on myself weighing down performance so much. I would have just been competing for the glory of the Lord, but I was an idiot and didn't put it together in time. So, but I'm here now, and now it's just, I mean, I feel I'm more what's the word? Peaceful. I don't get irritated as easily. I'm able to kind of just manage relationships better with people and just always be more understanding what people are going through. And just some of my interests things that I like to do have changed, where it's like I don't find enjoyment, in some of the things that I've used to enjoy, like to go do as much as I do now. Now I just like to live a quiet life
Hmm,
inside, you know. So that's
sure.
really those are kind of the main ways it's changed for me.
I love that. And I think that's it's amazing. Like I was talking to a friend the other day, and it's just thinking about how the idea of growth and how life doesn't necessarily get easier, just our ability to handle it gets,
Yeah.
we have more capacity to handle it. So we were talking in the weight room. We were actually, Greg,
Yeah.
Amber's husband, Greg. He did the
Uh-huh.
golf for us last year. He and I were in the weight room just the other day, and we were talking just about how, it's interesting. Like when you put the weight on the bar, like 185 is 185, no matter what. You can't change that. But what changes is our ability to move it. Like in the beginning, maybe you can only move it 2 or 3 times. Maybe now you can move it after lifting for a while, and then you can move it 10 times. The weight's the same. It's our capacity to handle the burden of the weight is what grows. And I think the same is true like in our walk with Jesus is, life's still hard, relationships are still difficult, things happen that are outside of our control. But as our capacity to be able to handle those from a Christ-like perspective, I think that's where it gets easier to handle that burden. And I agree. Like I wish I found this out sooner than you did, and you found it out sooner than I did. So you're still ahead of me. I'm almost
Yeah.
40, and it's been the last 5 years of my life where I figured this out at 35. So to be in
Yeah.
your early 20, mid to early 20s, like you got a jump start on me. But
Yeah. And to
um,
add on to what you just said, I think kind of it allows you to kind of let go of having to have control of everything, which
yeah,
provides you so much peace when you just know that he's steering your ship and that you don't have to worry about where you're going. You can just
yeah,
trust him.
that's true. Because if we're so worried about our performance, we're so worried about what we could do better, we're so frustrated with the loss or how I could improve. Like really, the answer is it's wired into us to think, oh, as an athlete, that's great, but really we're more worried about ourselves, right? That's like us looking in the mirror saying, what can I do better? Trying almost in a way to almost be kind of God. Whereas
Yeah,
if we just let God be God and we kind of slide into the natural spot where we slide in, like you giving me the ability to do this, I'm gonna do it to the best of my ability, but this is something that I do, it's not who I am. I think that that would be freeing.
100%.
Yeah. So now that you're the wise old man of what are you, 24, 25?
Yeah,
26?
26.
26. Now that you're the wise old man of 26, what would you go back and tell Easton maybe his sophomore year of college, right before all the records, right before all of that? What might you give him as advice to maybe let him in on the secret now that you figured out?
Uh, yeah. Hmm. I would say to keep keep working hard. One thing I'll always give myself credit for is there was many setbacks in the way throughout kind of my athletic career, and I never really let it get the best of me, and I always kind of overcame it. But to, like we spoke about earlier, let go of control of everything and put it in the hands of the Lord and really strengthen your relationship with Him. Build that relationship with others that are also believers, and also spread the word of Him to others, whether it's teammates, classmates, friends, family, but really just anchoring yourself in Him and not your performance in your sport. Because for so long, that was the time next to my name was, or the place that I came into was worth more than gold to me. And it sounds embarrassing to say it now, but like that's what it was, and that's where I was at. So just letting go of that mindset would have helped a ton.
I love the honesty, man, and I think a lot of people listening could relate to that, especially those of us that have competed. I mean, I played D3 sports, and I thought very similarly, and at the high level of like D1, I can't even imagine. Um, Right, like last thing, right before we just get you out of here, I want to give you a chance if you have. I am a big fan of Princetown, and I love Princetown Church. It's been a game changer ministry wise, and I know that's your home church. And I don't know anyone listening if you're looking for a church in the capital region, I recommend Princetown. But I don't know. I want to give you maybe a chance to maybe shout out Princetown and talk a little bit about some of the things that you're involved with there at the church.
Uh, yeah, so obviously, like we've mentioned a million times already, the power camp that we do over the summer has been
Yeah.
great. They've also been Noah Tyndale, who's the youthman here and a good friend, he's involved with FCA sometimes at UAlbany, reaching out with the student athletes there. We've got young adult groups that meet up, which have been great for building community. We've got every type of adult, any type of group that you're looking for, pretty much. Rock life
Yeah.
for teenagers, but really it's a great place. The people there really have a heart for God, and they love others and they love to serve. And Pastor Ian, who's a good friend of yours, he's great. He
Yeah.
does an awesome job of breaking down messages and really letting them resonate with you.
Yeah, man. I think the thing that fascinates me the most, because I think a lot of churches do things good. Like I think, having children's ministry, having youth group, having all of those things. But there's just something about Princetown that they have a dynamic children's ministry. They have a dynamic rock life. They have a young adult group, which I do think is something that a lot of churches don't have. So and plus the adult ministry as well. One of the things that I think is the coolest is, and we've had Noah on the podcast before, and he's talked a little bit about it, but just the different ministry that Princetown has. So if you're somebody who's maybe new to faith, or maybe you've had a situation that maybe you're looking for a Bible believing church to go to. Princetown is definitely one that I would recommend for sure. So I just wanted to give a little plug for Princetown. Easton, before we get you out of here, I just wanted to give you, I don't know, man. I mean, we've covered a lot of stuff, some heavy stuff. I really appreciate you talking about the whole idea of an identity and just wrestling with the idea of what it takes to truly chase after Jesus versus filling that hole that sports was and you replacing that with who Jesus is. But I just wanted to give you one, like if there's any other thoughts or final thoughts or comments that you have, I'd love to give you a chance to just kind of share those.
Um, I would just say wherever you are in your faith or in your career as an athlete, just take a minute and reset and kind of just think about everything. Think about where you want to be, where you want to go with that, but also think about how you're living and who are you putting your treasure in? Are you putting your treasure in your sport and your performance? Are you putting these worldly things? Are you putting your treasure in the Lord? Because only one of those is going to be able to fill you with the joy and the peace that we're all looking for. And that's really my where I've come and where I've grown in my faith. And just another thing is that the Lord, He loves us and He's not going to punish us more than we can handle. So just trust in Him, go through the storms, go through the valleys, and you'll make it out of it and you'll be better because of that.
Yeah, man, that's great advice. And Easton, my friend, I thank you so much for taking some time, like I mentioned, on a Sunday afternoon to sit down and record a little podcast with us. But
Yeah.
we're so thankful for the relationship that we've been able to grow with the church, but also just as a friend to have you, someone now that I can call a friend, and just thank you so much for taking some time.
Yeah, no, thank you for doing this. Hopefully it'll be able to resonate with people and learn from previous people's errors.
Oh, I'm sure it will. God has a way of taking things and taking down things that are painful in others and turning them into something beautiful. So, um, I just thank you for that. This episode actually should drop. So this Tuesday we have one coming out, and then so by the end of August, I'm thinking this will drop. So I'll make sure we let you know. But for all you
Got it.
listeners, as you know, every other Tuesday we have an episode that drops. This next week is my week. Following week's Vincenzo, and that'll be my week again, and that's when it'll be you. So thank you so much, Easton. We're so glad you could be able to join us today. And until next time, everyone, follow along on the Locker Room podcast. We'd love to have you guys listen when we drop them. Thanks again.